It's a three-part question, candidates. Do you support immigration reform? Do you support immigration reform that calls for a path to citizenship? And how exactly do you define a secure border? Senator Holmquist. I will. Immigration reform. Do you support immigration reform? Do you support immigration reform that calls for a path to citizenship? How exactly do you define a secure border?
Thank you. The first answer would be yes. I think immigration reform is something that, unfortunately, the status quo right now in Congress have failed to acknowledge and address. And I can tell you, first off and foremost, that as your Congresswoman, I would not be afraid to take on this issue. And I think the issue with immigration is that it's illegal immigration is what we're really talking about. And I find it really unfortunate in many cases the way that it's phrased is that it's got to be mutually exclusive when we're talking about a plentiful workforce and securing our borders. I do not think it's mutually exclusive. I think we should be able to have secure borders and a plentiful workforce, and I could work to make sure that that happens. First and foremost, we have to secure our borders. And everyone says that. Well, I'm doing my homework. I figured out how much it's going to cost per mile to get it done. And then I'm figuring out where to cut in the budget to pay for it so we're not raising your taxes and increasing government. And then beyond that, I think that there are some great ways right now and paths already in statute for citizenship. I think we need to put budgets, priorities on those countries that we depend on their workforce, those migrant workers to come into our country, and make sure that we've got the funding for those visa programs. As well as, bottom line, we have to make sure that a path to citizenship, that you as an immigrant shouldn't have to hire a lawyer, and that you as a small grower shouldn't have to hire a lawyer to get through the process of an H-2A program. I will work to revamp to get a robust and affordable H-2A program that small growers and big growers can afford. Thank you.
Thank you. Very difficult to answer in 90 seconds. Mr. Midbus.
I'll make it easy. What we should do is bring our military back home. We'll use them to secure our borders instead of the borders of the other countries that really don't matter to us. I think the best option would be to make immigration easier, and essentially what we should do is any people that are in here illegally, let's put them back over the border where they came from and tell them to come back in the legal way. And then, all this money we want to spend, because the money we'd normally be spending overseas on our militarism, we'd be just spending it at home to protect our own borders. So, that's about the best way we can protect our borders and fix immigration, because we have a really good military there. I mean, who's going to be sneaking over the border with our military there?
As I said earlier, I think the immigration issue is one of the most critical ones facing our country today. It's not working. Our policies are broken. It's not keeping the bad guys out, and it's not letting those people that want to contribute to the American dream in. It's not working for those employers that are looking for temporary help to fill jobs that are not being taken by the domestic workforce. So we need to have immigration reform. We need to stem the tide of illegal immigration, have a better guest worker program that allows people to come to this country legally, work legally, and then when the job is done, go home legally, which I think many of them would do because that's where their families are. So, but what do we do about the 11 or so million people that are here? I'm not for amnesty, but I do think we need a long-term solution. I'm not for shipping them all back home. I just don't think that that's logistically or financially feasible. So what can we do with them? I think we need to submit them to background checks, make sure that they pay a penalty for the crime that they've committed, make sure they have a work history, and allow them through this process to attain legal status. We already have a system in place to attain citizenship. I don't think we need to mess with that. these people can go to the back of the line without any special treatment, and if they want, work towards that. But I do think that we have to solve this tremendously critical issue. These people are living in our communities. They're driving on the same highways that we are. We have to solve this because this is something that is critical for the security of our nation as well as our economic well-being.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
It's my 2002 voter pamphlet statement. It said, within Washington's 1998 voter pamphlet, I professed, Americans require equity in the law, national defense in part by secure borders. That was my prophecy on our global climate back then. Who's listening now? Clearly, this is the Congress was more concerned about nonsense than national defense. If you want to read on about my positions, just go to the Yakima Herald website, and they'll publish a treaty on this. Reform. Well, wait a minute. I have a neighbor of 22 years who's been in America for 35 years, has a green card for 35 years. He's worked minimum wage, just above minimum wage, the golf course for 22 years. He has 4 children, daughters in Canada and Mexico. He put them through school with that little bit of money in a Catholic school. He paid for all their immigration to become American citizens. They now reside in California, and his wife also, all citizens. So, I say that the United States Constitution doesn't provide rewards for people in their lawlessness. I say intern them, identify them, send them back to the nation of culpability. At the end of the immigration line, we do not have a shortage of immigration lawyers. Borders, we need to secure, of course. We could use drones. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with satellite imagery? There are things you don't even need to know what's coming across that border, but we need to stop it.
Thank you. Mr. Simon.
We need real immigration reform. We sure do. But in America, we're a nation of immigrants. It's not our weakness, it's our strength. We've made it our weakness with political posturing and games. Our border is insecure, not because the great nation of America is incapable of securing the border, but because we are not, as we've just seen in this last week, as hundreds and hundreds pour across the border unchecked. We need to get the government legal again. We need to reform immigration by streamlining and simplifying. And if I may very briefly go back into history, in April 1907 on Ellis Island, New York, in one day, over 11,000 people immigrated. Now, when you immigrated to Ellis Island, it took 3 to 5 hours to become a permanent United States resident. Not a citizen, but a resident. Not coming here for free entitlements or programs, but to work hard and practice the American dream. We need to get the government out of freebies and deciding winners and losers. It shouldn't take decades to immigrate here legally. We need to secure our borders. We need to require that people come here legally, and we need to make a reasonable path for them to do so.
Thank you. Mr.
I'm all for making a path for citizenship, but I'm all for building defense and securing our borders. I agree with Kevin over here that we need to bring our military back and put them on the border and just stop all the traffic flow across there. All these bus loads and plane loads of people that are coming in now, we read about in the paper, we should charge that back to the airplane companies and also the bus companies and tell them to go, take them back home, charge them for it. And we have, in this state alone, 300,000 people that are unemployed. As your congressman, I am working for you. That doesn't mean that we won't work on a project that will help streamline the process. I agree with Gavin Symes here, that should be done. And as your congressman, I will work very hard for you, the American people, and I will also work for a path for citizenship. Thank you.
Mr. Seacott.
3-part question, I'll answer it quickly. Do I support immigration reform? Yes. Path to citizenship? No. We need an improved visa program. The details are in item 9 in my contract with Eastern Washington. Finally, third question, what's my definition of a secure border? It's a border where we know who's coming in and who's leaving. Very simple, simple as that. Now, immigration is really just a great example of a myriad of issues where we need leadership. What is leadership? Leadership is what's absent here on this issue. A leader creates a vision, creates a path to accomplish that vision, and unites people behind it. All we have in politics right now are people using this issue to divide people. All right, we've got all kinds of immigrants. I might have some immigrant clients who are here in the audience right now, I'm not even sure. But rather than trying to divide people, let's bring people together. Let's have leadership on this point. A leader knows the way, shows the way, and goes the way. That's what we need, and that's what I offer to the people. Again, check it out, item 9 of my contract. Thank you.
Mr. Gideon.
Well, a lot of what I have to say has already been said. We are a nation of immigrants. Most of our heritage came from other nations. But this debate is more than securing our border. It's about national security. In my 2010 Senate race, I was handed information of terrorists crossing our border. Now, how do we secure the border? Again, I've said this in my 2000 Senate race. We need our military home from these conflicts overseas. Not all of them. We need some of these bases for moving our troops around, but we need to bring the vast majority of them home, put them on the border. In 2007, our military was on the border, and nothing crossed the border until some of the federales got their nerve up and they went after one of our bases. They had to retreat because they were not given ammunition to defend themselves. This is our federal government, putting people on our border without ammunition to defend themselves. Our military's presence there, and the farmers and ranchers down there will grant us an easement. They are insecure. They won't even go to the river there anymore because of the insecurity of the zone. We need to make it a safe place for those residents and for us, because we have an influx of immigrants into our nation and terrorists. Amnesty, no. We need to address the 30% of our prisoners that are illegal immigrants that we're paying for their existence in prisons. I say ship them out immediately. Anybody that's here illegally, we need to find out who they are, and therefore we give them a visa, and that visa is renewed every year. And I'll go into that further.
Thank you. Candidates, the next question comes from the Benton County Republican Party. Mr. Midbust, we'll start with you. Veterans Affairs. Concerning the recent doctored reports of delays at VA hospitals, what should Congress do to correct this issue?
Well, my solution is let's make a bill that funds the VA, put it under like the other 100 or 1,000 bills at the very bottom, and then watch the VA slowly run out of funding until it just eventually dies. And then what I'll do, I'll take the money that we would have sent to the VA and give it straight to the veterans. Then they can go and get the health care they need wherever they decide is best for them. That is about the only solution that I can see that'll work. Thank you.
Mr. Duhon.
Well, first of all, the reports that we hear coming from the Veterans Administration is just heartbreaking, and something has to change quickly. I think what we need to do is conduct a thorough examination of what's happening at the Veterans Administration throughout the whole organization. I'm glad to see the Secretary resign, and probably more people will have to lose their jobs over this. When we conduct that examination, then we have to come up with thorough, good reforms in order to make sure that this never happens again, and then keep the administration's feet to the fire to make sure that they carry them out. You know, our veterans were there for us when we needed them to keep our country secure. We need to make sure that when they have needs, that our government is there for them to take care of them in their time of need.
Thank you.
I received an email from a gentleman named Randall L. All these 12 candidates received the same email. And he asked about the VA administrator that was asked to resign by Obama. And I defended him. That man is an honorable man. He's a four-star general. He has a prosthesis for a foot. You're not going to find anybody more honorable than him. He has a clear conscience. He can sleep at night, and I salute him, and so should you. He held on, but he was, he was just a fall man for the president, and while the real criminals got away here. Now, the VA's funded well. We just need to know what our lieutenants are up to. And I have defended the VA forever, and it's a tough go, people. Dr. Sung said years ago, about 10 years ago, he's a retinologist here in the Tri-Cities, and he said, why don't they just give the veterans a card so they can just go wherever they want to go, or need to go. I'd hate to see it have to come to that.
Thank you. Mr. Simon.
Folks, as the foundation of America, our veterans have been standing up for our liberty, and it's ridiculous that we would not take care of them and take care of their needs when they come back home. Of course, we need to fund the care of the veterans, but this comes back to a bigger problem, and I think it comes back to lawlessness. I think we have a president that's trying to make all of America the fall guy. I think we need to impeach our lawless president and get some law and order back in Washington, D.C. But on the individual issue of the organization and the respect for the veterans, how can we expect accountable agencies within our government if we have an unaccountable government, if we have an unaccountable Congress? So we absolutely need to support our veterans. And in the larger picture, what we need to do is we need to start holding our Congress accountable so that they will stop playing political games, start voting constitutional, stop spending all the money on things that they have no right to be spending it on, and start doing their job.
Mr. Stockwell.
I've served in the military in 2 branches of service, and I hate to report it to you, that our military had been thrown under the wheels for many, many years. In World War I, they weren't paid. They were actually machine gunned down in front of the White House steps. In World War II, they went through the same effect. During Vietnam, Agent Orange, thousands of people died after the fact, and then years later, for a little bit of pittance, they went ahead and they tried to cure a few people. Veterans are expendable. That's the terrible method in which they handle the veterans. I agree that we should go all the way to the top, impeach Obama. He's an illegal alien. He's a fraud. It's been proven. You can laugh about it all you choose. But we need to get people in office that will actually impeach him and get rid of him and get our Congress back to working for the people. And I will be one of those people.
Thank you. Mr. Tika.
Of course I support veterans. Let's get that point clear and off the table first. The problem with the VA is it's a microcosm of what's going to happen under Obamacare, and that's basically rationing. The solutions here, I hate to keep doing this, but guys, it's in my contract. Item number 4, the Healthcare Economic Reality Act, okay? Economics can solve our healthcare problems. If you don't believe it, look at LASIK surgery. Prices have dropped drastically over the past 15 years. We need to apply the same basic economic principles that have worked for LASIK to all healthcare. Right now, what's our government doing? As demand for healthcare is increasing by an aging population and a growing population, they're doing things that limit the supply of healthcare. Exactly the opposite from what we should be doing from a simple economic perspective. We need to expand supply, buy more doctors, more providers of all types, more equipment, more facilities, just like we saw here in the neighborhood, the new Trios Healthcare Center, and of course buy more insurance, allow insurance to be sold across state lines. All of these problems will allow prices for healthcare to drop naturally, and then we won't have this whole problem of people not having enough care. That's why we have VA hospitals, because we want to provide a special supply of care to veterans. If we allow the supply of health care in this nation to grow naturally like it should, we might not even need the VA hospital. I'm not saying get rid of it, but imagine a world where health care prices drop naturally and health care is affordable. That's the world I'm working toward, and I believe that solution would benefit all Americans, especially veterans. Thank you.
Mr. Dave.
I'm 100% behind our veterans. In fact, I have 2 veterans on my campaign staff here tonight. Let's face facts. The Veterans Administration has 342,000 employees. The VA has 342,000 employees. That's salaries, retirements, medical, go down the list. Think of it. If we were to downsize the VA to 5,000 employees, take all those salaries, all of that money, pull it together, and start distributing it to the veterans. Let me tell you right now, if you think the VA is bad, just wait till you get Obamacare. If we don't take care of our heroes any better than that, what are we? This is exactly what's going to happen with Obamacare. That's why I'm all for repealing Obamacare, defunding Obamacare. Healthcare the government has no right to be in our healthcare. The government, the federal government, had 4 responsibilities. National security, failing miserably. Post office and roads, failing miserably. Coin and currency, failing miserably. Currency, or commerce between states and nations. That was the 4 responsibilities. We need to get the VA out of government and give it back to the veterans and give them a voucher so they get treatment wherever they so choose.
Thank you. Senator Holmquist.
We have more than 600,000 individuals that are our veterans here in Washington State, and I think that our veterans and our military and their family deserve our appreciation and support. I myself am a VFW Ladies Auxiliary, and again, I have the proven track record of being a defender for our veterans. Just this last session, we passed the Pension Poacher Prevention Act, which was some unscrupulous schemes that were charging our veterans and their surviving spouses and families for services they should have been receiving free. And we were able to lead the charge and get that through this year, as well as allowing our veterans to get academic credit for their military experience. Now, when it comes to our VA hospital, while some candidates may want to look into it a little bit more, I think the proof is already there that there's a huge problem. And I would be strongly advocating and building coalitions to push for legislation. Right now we have House Resolution 4815 in Congress that would allow our veterans that are more than 40 miles away from the VA, or veterans that can't get the darn appointment scheduled, to be able to go to our local healthcare facility. And for my folks throughout the 4th Congressional District that have to drive for 2 hours to go visit the VA, I just think that's unacceptable. We don't need to look into it anymore. We need to change it, and I'm the Congress woman that will get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Question number 5. We'll start with Mr. Newhouse. And it comes from the Yakima Herald Republic. Affordable Care Act. What steps should Congress take on the Affordable Care Act? If you support it, what would you like to change? If advocating repeal, what would you replace it with? Tough question.
90 seconds. My position is that we need to repeal and replace the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. And that's not just my opinion. That is people up and down the Congressional District in Central Washington are telling me the exact same thing. It's not working. People are at the risk of losing their jobs. They're not getting the doctors that they were promised that they could keep. Their insurance premiums are going up. Deductibles are going up. And the biggest thing, that it's not addressing the increased costs of medical care, which I thought was supposed to have been the main thing. That's certainly what it was when we worked in Olympia on these issues when I was in the legislature. So, I'm not just a heck no kind of a guy. We need to replace it. I think the government does have a role in our health care. But it does not have, we do not have to go back to what we had before. No one agrees that that system was working. We have to get our healthcare delivery system back to where there's more control in people's hands, so they have choice, so that we use the lowest cost provider, not always the big hospital, but use the neighborhood clinics that can provide care at a much reasonable cost. We also need to allow insurance companies to be able to sell their policies across state lines. We in this state only have a handful, less than a handful, of available companies where we can buy healthcare insurance policies. We need to change. We need to allow affordability. We need to allow people to be able to be covered that have pre-existing conditions. Bottom line is, this is not working. It's not doing anything to reduce costs, and I will work to replace it. Thank you.
The Affordable Care Act, there are some Republicans that like portions of it, I mean small portions. I say repeal it. Replace it with what? Well, like I said, our dollars in the gutter. Let's build that dollar back. We can make this nation to the point where we can make that pie so enormous that the smallest slice one can extract from that pan be more than a fair share for the meager of us out here. And then under those conditions, healthcare, we would clean up our food chain. We would not be susceptible to all these diseases that we're handed. We create our cancers. We need to straighten out. We need to put these. We have a great resource in this nation. It's called the human mind, and we need to start focusing that on the whole populace, and it's just on the 1% that have 59% of the wealth.
Thank you. Mr. Simon?
Folks, I'm a heck no sort of guy when it comes to Obamacare. The federal government has no business being in our health care. And we can't expect to fix the lawlessness in our government if we keep doing more of the same. More of the same is not going to fix it. My contract with the 4th District is the United States Constitution. That's what we're going to Congress to uphold. And if we are outside the boundaries of that, like trying to make federal healthcare mandates, we are doing not what we were ordered by our constituents, but what we were forbidden, because the Constitution is the law for government. So I will work to repeal Obamacare, and I think we should consider, if we think we want it replaced at all, consider the ludicrous nature of a federal government who can't manage budget or borders, yet sees fit to regulate the spouts we use on our gas cans.
Thank you, Mr. Stockwell.
Well, I was in Congress November 8, 2009, when the health care bill passed Congress itself. It never did go to the Senate because Senator Kennedy died and they didn't move forward with it, and they just passed the House version. But I'm for repealing it, and I hate to be repetitive, but the easiest way to repeal this is recognize we have a fraudulent president that's illegal in office. I travel in Canada, everybody knows it, universally, and if you're laughing about it, you should check it out. Anyway, the easiest way to get rid of it is to impeach him, put President Biden into office, and start the entire process over again. He cannot, all the legislation he signed will be null and void. And it has to go through the process again. I'm for repealing Obamacare. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seacott.
Once again, I'm sounding like a broken record, aren't I? Section 1, laws 1 through 4, provide my clear-cut solution to Obamacare. Now, part of my approach is to talk straight up with the people. Everybody says they want to repeal it. Give me a break. That's not going to happen. Obama's going to veto that. The earliest chance to repeal and replace Obamacare is January 22nd of 2017, when we might have a Republican president. So what solutions does everybody else offer? I guess they sit on their hands for 3 years and wait. I provide alternate solutions to fix the problems that Obamacare is causing that we can deal with immediately and get these things solved. What this means for you, you don't wait for another 3 years for a solution. We get a solution next January 1st when I take office. Now, let me just draw a point here. This issue highlights this distinction very well. You're seeing up here on the stage some...
That's not what we stand for. As your congresswoman, what I'm going to do is put you back in the driver's seat so that you can make your own darn health care decisions, so that you can choose your own doctors. And while working towards a repeal, I'm going to work for some common sense, consumer-driven solutions, such as you should all have the opportunity, every citizen of Washington State should have the opportunity to purchase his or her insurance with pre-tax dollars. You should have the opportunity to buy a less expensive catastrophic plan. You should have the opportunity to go across state lines and buy your health insurance and have portability and bring it with you. It never made sense to me why you get to keep your life insurance forever, but just because you quit your job or change your job or move across state lines, you got to start from square one when it comes to your health insurance. And I think that we also need to be repealing some taxes that don't make sense. There's a brand new 2.3 excise tax on durable and healthcare equipment such as MRIs. We've got to get rid of that. There's a lot we can do right now to make sure we get some more common sense, consumer-driven solutions and put you back in the driver's seat when it comes to your healthcare decisions. Thank you.
Mr. Mendez.
Okay, let's be clear. The government does not have the constitutional authority to be in healthcare. There's nothing in the Constitution that says the government will determine what type of health care or an insurance company will give you. So essentially, as far as Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act is, I do support repealing it. I support repealing just about any law, pretty much. What I'll replace it with is with this. What I'd like to replace it with is this. See, this is a $100 bill. It gives you complete control over your health care because you can go walk right into a hospital, give them cash, and they'll give you treatment. So how are we going to make this worth more? We'll get rid of the Federal Reserve. It'll stop printing the money, and the value of your dollar will go up, so you can use this to pay for your health care. That seems like a simple answer. It gives you complete control over what your treatment and what you want and what you don't want. That's what we do, get rid of the Federal Reserve.
So I made a statement that we were on time and doing just well and chose to do a 90-second on immigration. Now have myself in a difficult position. We are behind. We have just completed question number 5, and I said we'd take a break, but I'm not seeing a lot of stirring. There's a lot of activity going on up here, and I don't know about you, but I'm engaged, so I'm going to keep rolling here. I think question number 6, we can probably make up a little time. It has to do with gun control, and it's almost a yes or no question. So, question number 6 is from the Yakima Herald Republic. Thank you. Gun control, a proposal to require background checks for gun purchases, failed in the Senate last year. Do you support such legislation? And we will start with Mr. Prost.
Given the climate of our culture and weapons in this culture, we've had 35 school shootings since Sandy Hook. We're not paying attention to our children. Well, parents aren't able to because they're too tasked out here to keep the roof over their heads. You know, we need to have background checks. I'm not so sure if we maybe should have a litmus test of a couple questions to see if their head's screwed on right. We do need to know their backgrounds, just like, you know, people that immigrate here, we need to know who they are. We need to know who's handling these guns out here. And we need to actually enforce the laws that we have. And but I don't believe that once you've procured your weapon, that the government should have information because I had a card given to me once about 35 years ago that says, if you think gun control works, just ask Adolf Hitler.
Thank you, Mr. Simon.
You know, a question I always feel like asking our legislators is, what part of shall not be infringed is confusing to you? Now, the Constitution is clear on this. We have a God-given right to protect our families and ourselves against criminals, whether those criminals are lurking around in the backyard or whether it's our government. Our right to bear arms is irrevocable. It's not given to us by the Constitution. The Constitution is the order that we, the people, placed on government and said, you shall not infringe this right. That is the law. That means no background checks. It means no lists. It means we, the government, do not get to decide the winners and losers. We don't get to decide whether or not you have a right to protect yourself. Shall not be infringed means exactly what it says. And I will not support any legislation that restricts our guns.
Mr. Stockwell.
Well, I fully support the Second Amendment, and like Mr. Sines said here, I fully support his view on that. I was raised by a Marine that came back from World War II. He was only 9 or 10 of his entire group. The President's trying to take away our guns and our rights, but everyone that's around him has a gun. Why is that? But if everyone knows you need them, that's why you need them. We don't like to use them. I've killed many things in my life. My dad raised me to be a shootist. Absolutely no one in this audience would want me to shoot at them. But I have yet to kill anyone because I control myself. It's the person that has the gun that is out of control. It's not the gun itself. We have a God-given right to the guns. The Constitution gives it to us. I'm actually against background searches because I went through the Yukon in Canada one time frame, and they were trying to do the same thing up there. And when they get your background on you, they have the collection point is where they're going to come to get the guns. And that's not what we need. So I fully support the Second Amendment.
I mentioned earlier that it doesn't make sense to send career politicians back to solve the problems that their type have created. You see another set of groups up here, people who are definitely not career politicians, and yet they seem to be a little extreme, so extreme that they government doesn't have any place in our lives whatsoever. The Constitution was created in order to form a more perfect union, not to have no union or no government whatsoever. So, the question I want to ask to you, the real question that has been asked here, are background checks an infringement? Because we know that under the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I would suggest to you that drawn properly, they are not an infringement. I think we all in this room would be very happy if no crazy person comes in and starts shooting us. Maybe somebody does have their concealed weapon permit. If you do, stand up, that's a good thing. Still, the idea that we keep guns out of the hands of crazies, that's a good thing. I don't see that as an infringement on the right to keep and bear arms. Of course, laws have to be carefully monitored, and you're hiring a congressman to do just that. We got to be careful. This is a very dicey issue. Yet you're going to pay me to make difficult decisions. We're going to draw it carefully. Of course, we don't want people who are crazy having guns who might do bad things with them. I think we would all agree to that. And yet we don't want our right to keep and bear arms to be infringed. We've got to balance these two issues. You can't take a polarized one or the other. It's not one or the other. We've got to draw a reasonable path between them. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do up here as a candidate. I think you can see the divide that's going on. We've got some folks who are very far right, very extreme. We've got some folks who are just part of the problem that's been created. And I think that I've got the Goldilocks approach just right down the middle.
Thank you, Mr. Davies.
Our Second Amendment rights were second for a reason. It was for we the people to protect ourselves against criminals and a tyrannical government. We have a tyrannical government today that's out of control. Now, the Didier campaign has a gun giveaway. That's right, we're giving away guns. 2 9mm pistols, you got to be 21 years of age to get those, and an AR-15 with 30-round magazine. That's a double poke in the eye to the federal government, because they're trying to ban that gun. We know guns don't commit crimes. If you look at all these shootings, they're in gun-free zones. This is the enticement for these people to go to that area because they know they can't defend themselves. That's why we need our Second Amendment right. That's why I'm going to make sure you retain your right to keep and bear arms. Now, that gun giveaway, that's our opportunity, we the people, to civilly, and I emphasize civilly, tell our state legislators, because there's a lot of state bills, and our federal legislators, back off from our Second Amendment. We're not giving it up without a fight. So please join me in making a civil statement. Go to my website. Thank you.
Senator Humphrey.
I am a staunch supporter and defender of your Second Amendment rights. I am a lifetime NRA endowment member. I am a concealed weapons permit holder, and I have earned the support and the highest possible rating from the NRA for this candidacy. But the difference between me and most of the other candidates is that anyone can talk about defending your Second Amendment rights. I've actually done it. In this state legislature, over and over again, there has been attempts to take your guns, to make you go through background checks and gun shows, to start a registry, and I was your defender successfully in the state of Washington. I'm ready to go to bat for you, and you can count on me.
Okay, I want to make sure it's clear that currently all gun control laws are unconstitutional. It's not just the Second Amendment we're looking at. It's Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth. Because I've never gone through a trial or had a jury of my peers to determine that I'm actually guilty of some crime. I have to prove my innocence if I want to buy a gun. And that totally goes against what we have here in our Constitution. The idea of innocent until proven guilty. There was no trial. Why should I not be allowed to get a gun? So what I think, what I believe is a real problem is what I'm going to do is tie the Federal Reserve into this, because what the real problem is with violence in our society is economics. Because people who don't have anything to live for anymore. The best economic solution is that violence. So what I want to do is get rid of that violence. Let's get rid of the Federal Reserve to allow people the dollars that they have in their pocket to get their value back. So there are fewer people looking to do crazy things just because it seems like the best option. Thanks.
Mr. Newhouse.
I'm an NRA member. I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, and I think we've got enough laws on the books if they're just enforced. My time in the legislature, which I'm not apologizing for, I defended your right to own and bear arms. I was recognized by the NRA with the highest possible rating that they give the state lawmakers. And I will continue to do that job for you when I represent you in Washington, D.C. But beware that on the ballot this fall, there will be 2 measures. You need to be very aware of what those measures say, because sometimes well-meaning, the very misguided people are out to infringe your right, take your guns away. So please be an informed voter this fall.
Thank you. Well, I was clearly wrong on the short answers. That didn't work out in my favor at all. The next question comes from the Benton County Republican Party. Foreign policy. Should the Congress be taking action to find out why the embassy in Benghazi was not prepared for the attack that took up 4 American lives? Starting with Mr. Simon.
Absolutely. The scandal and all the things that are being hit in Benghazi is astounding. It's not the only thing we're seeing hidden in our federal government, and people need to be held accountable for their lawlessness. What we've seen from this administration with Benghazi is such a disdain for the authority of the people, for the authority of Congress, an attitude from the administration that we can do whatever we want because we're the Obama administration. It's time to hold people accountable. We definitely need to look into this. We need to figure out exactly what happened, and we need to hold people accountable for what happened. Thank you.
Mr. Stockwell.
I think we should hold President Obama totally responsible for that. That is supposed to be the commander-in-chief, and he let everyone down on that. Actually, it was supposed to be a November surprise if you get into the background on it. It was supposed to be similar to Jimmy Carter when they went in to save him, but it got out of hand. It got out of hand because if you watch the background and start reading about it, they actually hired people from Al-Qaeda to protect it. So that's like getting a wolf to protect the lamb. It is stupid. I honestly feel that we as a nation need to get control of the presidency. And I disagree with some saying that we'll have to wait for 2016 or 17 to do it. We need to do it right now. And I will be one of those people that will do it to make it to Congress. Thank you.
Absolutely, we should research and find out what's going on in Benghazi. It's not just Benghazi. Benghazi is symptomatic of this president's approach to his failed approach to international affairs the world over. You know, when he took office, we had been attacked less than 8 years prior in D.C. and New York. One plane went down to Pennsylvania. Again, this is a tough thing to put out a terrorist foe that we don't know exactly where they are coming from. Well, or do we? Yeah, we do. In fact, we see what's going on right now in Iraq. We pulled out of Iraq, and now we've created this vacuum, and what's going on there? We've got ISIS, Islamics from Iraq and Syria, coming together. It's the new hotbed of terrorism. There was an article in today's Wall Street Journal by former Vice President Cheney that clearly sets out the case of Obama's failure here. Should Congress act to look into these failures? Absolutely. The people deserve answers, and we deserve a far, far, far better international representation than we've had by this administration. Thank you.
As far as Benghazi, why wasn't there an independent council? Well, that comes to leadership, our House leadership, our Speaker of the House in particular. This is a man that I want replaced because he does not have leadership. He's not leading. He's reacting, and he's not reacting very well. There should have been an independent council on Benghazi. There should have been an independent council on IRS. Now Lois Lerner's lost all of her emails. And so has 6 other people. The lawlessness is going to continue until we hold them accountable. That's what I will do as your 4th Congressional. I will hold them accountable.
I think it's just heart-wrenching, and it makes me very, very mad to think and know that our federal government had knowledge that American lives were at stake, and they didn't even try to protect our American citizens. It's unacceptable. And I'm going to go back to my proven track record is I've been to bat for you, and when necessary, I've taken on Governor Gregoire and Inslee. And bottom line, I am the most prepared to bring the battle to Pelosi and President Obama and hold them accountable and get them to come along to our ideals instead of being force-fed their anti-American agenda. I look forward to being your warrior in Congress, and I'd ask for your support. Thank you.
Mr. Midland.
Well, as far as I can tell, I see good reason for this investigation to happen. I think that if our government is supposed to be transparent to us, we should know what happened. We should know what our representatives and elected people are doing. I mean, it seems to be like, I don't know why we don't have the media chasing some of these guys down and asking them questions. You know, I really think, you know, there's ways to keep this from happening again. I don't know why we're all being in other countries. It makes no sense. Why don't I mean, to me, as far as going into other countries to fight for them, I'm kind of bipolar on foreign policy. What we should do is either, if we're going to go in, let's go slap them with the Constitution and tell them they're now a United States of America. If we're not going to do that, let's stay home. If one of our friends needs help, we can help them. But I just don't like to see all this militarism and then people dying for pretty much no reason. Thanks.
Mr. Newhouse.
I've been to several embassies and several consulates around the world. So when I heard the news about what happened in Benghazi, I could only imagine what was going through the minds of those people as that building was being overrun. Yes, we need to find out what happened, because the fact remains, we have people stationed all around the world in very similar situations. And we've got to do everything we can do to make sure it never happens again.
Thank you. Mr. Cross.
Benghazi, as Janine mentioned, we have the heads up on that. We need not have embassies out there not having protection, number one. And depending upon what side you sit on overseas, at times we were perceived as committing genocide. And on the base of my website, at the very bottom, it says First Amendment ballot, Second Amendment bullet. The bullet is the last resort. And the ballot is to talk it out, to reason it out. And we just need to pay attention to our foreign policy. I think it's at times it's a little brash and we get a whiplash out of that. But yes, it'd be nice to see a little bit of accountability, responsibility, and liability here. We don't see much of that up on the Hill.
Thank you. So the next question, and I'm going to ask the candidates maybe to help me out a little bit with this so we can keep going here. We had more questions submitted than we possibly have time for, and I've kind of tried to choose them in the order that I think people would, not the order, but those that would care a lot about certain issues. And I want to get into the local issues as well. But there's one final question that I think is very important, and it can probably come with a short answer. And Mr. Stockwell, we'll start with you. It has to do with the national debt. Do you favor a balanced budget amendment to replace the need for continuing resolutions to fund our government?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. I'm trying to set a pace here. No, please, go ahead. Just.
Well, you know, after you get us all going, we can't shut it down.
I understand.
But anyway, the problem with America is our economy. And Kevin is correct. You know, he said the Federal Reserve has to go. Well, if he goes on my webpage, I've been promoting that for the last 2.5 years. But anyway, we need to get control of our monetary system. And from top to bottom, we need to get rid of the Federal Reserve. They stole our banking system in 1913. They took over 25 of the nation's largest papers in 1917. They took over control of the IRS in 1917. And then a little later, they took control of the Social Security system. We need to get rid of the IRS, or the Federal Reserve, and the IRS. And I do agree with the balanced budget.
Okay, I'm going to remind the candidates that it is about a balanced budget amendment. Thank you. Mr. Seacott.
Thank you, Senator. Yes. Item 10 in my contract with Eastern Washington sets forth very clearly my approval of a balanced budget amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Diddy.
Yes, I'm for a balanced budget. But how are we going to get to a balanced budget, ladies and gentlemen? We've got 1,200 agencies. 1,200. One of them just inflicting an endangered species right here in my backyard. That's going to stymie our economy here in the great state of Washington with the White Bluffs bladderpod. The White Bluffs bladderpod. It's a flowering sagebrush, and it takes on a yellow flower because it's in the alkaline soil of the bluffs. Now, we did a DNA analysis of this in Idaho State University with all the other bladderpods of our state and the 2 bordering states. There's no difference. But they told us, we can't recognize your study because it wasn't done by an official agency. 1,200 agencies. I am going to put forth legislation to start defunding these agencies that are stymieing the American economy.
Heck yes, I'm in support of a balanced budget amendment. And again, the difference between me and the rest of the candidates is I have done it. I'm just not talking about it, I've done it. I've led the charge on your behalf to make Washington State the first state in our nation to adopt a balanced budget constitutional amendment. And folks, when this happened, I remember Governor Gregoire looking me in the eyes saying, you know, Senator Holmquist, this is never gonna happen. And I said, but I believe it can and it will. And we worked across the aisle and we got it done, folks. And that's what we need more of in Congress. I think these issues are just too important to have a freshman legislator that needs training wheels at your expense. Put me to work. I'm ready to do it on day one, and I look forward to being your warrior. Thank you.
I'll give you a 2-for-1. Balanced budget amendment and repealing the Federal Reserve. I'll do that. That way, our money will get our value back, and we'll actually be able to afford stuff without going into debt. So, yeah, let's do that.
Thank you, Mr. Newman.
One of the biggest things that we face as a nation is the spiraling deficit that our Congress has run up, almost $18 trillion. Like I said before, that's unsustainable. Congress has proven to us they do not have the discipline to live within their means, like every family has to, every successful business has to, and most state governments has to. So I definitely will be proposing as one of my first actions a balanced budget amendment for the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prime.
When I first started running for Congress back in 1998, we were pushing $4 trillion. Now we're pushing, as Mr. Newman said, $18 trillion. Balanced budget, you know, if we had leadership.
And we need to get back to the principles of self-governance and liberty that so many spilled their blood to get us. Thank you.
Thank you. So, candidates, we have a dilemma. If we end it here and give you 2 minutes, we're going to be short. We're going to end short. Or I could get into a very short question, and you could give a very short answer, and we can still get the 2 minutes in. So I'm going to ask you what could be a yes or no question. I know that Mr. Stockwell probably will want to talk a little bit more about this, but this comes from the Yakima Herald Republican. Please keep these short. Yakima River Basin. Do you support continued federal funding for the Yakima River Basin Enhancement Project? Short answer, please. Mr. Seacott.
Well, last time I gave a short answer, nobody else did, so I think I get a comeback this time, right? Yes, I am. It's fair to characterize water as the gold of the 21st century. And here's a little hook for you. I think we need a new Fort Knox, and it needs to be right here in our district.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Didier.
No, I am not in favor of more funds because we're bankrupt, folks. Where's this money going to come from? China? Japan? We don't have no money. The more reasonable task is for the state to take this on. Keep the wealth within our state. Why do we need the federal government? We don't. This is our state. We can make more reservoirs. We do it with our own money. We keep the funds here.
Well, I think it's paramount to our agricultural and our national security to have water. I mean, everything in our economy depends on it. I've been a huge advocate and a protector of your property rights, including your water rights. I've helped get state funding for the Yakima River Enhancement Project. We're talking about water storage, folks. This is a big problem. This is going to cost us estimatedly $4 billion in the next 30 years to complete this. I think that there is a possibility of both private venues and paths forward in helping with the funding, as well as taxpayer-funded support. And so that's what I would look at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the government's done so well with Hanford. Why don't we start another project, right? So hopefully you take that as a no. I really think I don't feel like stealing jobs from other states to give us jobs here. What I want to do, what I believe in is non-government solutions. So if they really need, Yakima Basin really needs this water, where's the business or that's gonna do this for them? Or why are we asking the government way off in Washington D.C. to put our money through this bureaucracy to make this happen? This just shouldn't happen. So what I think, if it's really important to us, if it's a matter of money, I'm going to tie it back to the Federal Reserve. We, in the Federal Reserve, so our money gets value, so someone can have money to make this happen. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Newhouse.
In arid eastern Washington, water is critical for life. It's everything. If without water, we wouldn't even be here today. So this is something I've been working on for a long time. We can prove that the investments that have been made in the Yakima Basin as well as the Columbia Basin have been great, and have been good for this country. They've been good for this state, both its economy and our communities. So I definitely think that a partnership of private, state, and federal resources can be brought together to enhance the resources that we currently have so that we are ready for the future. We have water for our communities, for our industries, and for our agriculture. The return on investment is obvious. It's been huge. And I think the federal government has a definite place in making sure that this is available for everybody in the state to benefit from.
Thank you, Mr. Press.
So what is the benefit? The whole world has to benefit from our breadbasket here. While we have 3 separate governments, federal, state, and local, it's to help pull in, to bring about, resources that we have that we need to work with. It's our money too. We're going to turn it right back into the economy. So I would think.
Thank you, Mr. Simon.
No, we need to get the federal government out of our state resources. Washington is filled with water and resources and land. Why are we letting the federal government control that when they have no authority to do so? We need to take advantage of our own resources so that we can profit from them, not the federal government. A federal government, by the way, who has been derelict and dysfunctional in helping us do it up to this point in so many areas of our state. We need to restore lands to the state, resources to the state, and tell the federal government to stay in D.C. and do the job that they were tasked with in our Constitution. More of the same will not fix the problem. The Liberty train is about to go off a cliff. And it's time to get serious and take on the federal government and get them legal if we want to protect our liberty and our resources within our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stockwell.
Well, these are the 3 projects that I'm promoting in Snake River, Columbia Basin, and also the Yakima River project. You'll see when you walk out, you'll see some large banners out there where I discuss that. I agree with Mr. Didier and Mr. Sines, Mr. Frost, and actually Mr. Newhouse in part. But we need to get the federal government out of it. The Columbia Basin project has been waiting now 65 plus years for the federal government. It's our economy. We can take and put together a funding package, and Wall Street's daily stock trades at roughly $50 billion. we can obtain financing of this project just like Bill Gates and others do. We should get away from the federal government, put these packages together, put together a national and international offering, and put the projects in, and do it ourselves. Thank you.
So candidates, it's come to that time. You have 2 minutes to convince this audience that you're the right person for Congress. I know that 2 minutes is not a long period of time. You've done a remarkable job so far. I don't know how you get these things out in 1 minute, but you've done a remarkably good job. I'll start at the end of the alphabet with Mr. Stockwell and work our way backwards. Mr. Stockwell, 2 minutes.
I'm coming before you with a real project proposal. In our state, we have 300,000 people that need jobs. We have the ability to fund all 3 of these projects and put people to work. We don't need the federal government. We can do it ourselves. We can take the same method that Bill Gates and other billionaires have taken, and we can have the money put in trust accounts for each project. When you send me to Congress, I will take the very first week of office, I will take the podium, and I will call for a vote for impeachment of Obama. It only takes 217 votes. We have the votes. Everyone keeps trying to second guess what the Senate's going to do. You can either read the news or you can make the news. I will be a person that makes the news. I will stand up for your rights. I will bring jobs here. I will have total funding for these 3 projects within 2 years. And if I do not carry through with what I've told you, fire me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Simon.
Americans, liberty is not the fringe. Liberty is the foundation. It's what made this nation. And make no mistake, if we do not start standing up for liberty now, while we still can, our children and our grandchildren will have to take it back at the price of blood. It's time to stop letting the government play games. It's time to start restoring our jobs and our economies, not by more legislation and more restriction and bigger government, but by restraining and restricting and shrinking government. If we want to restore America, we need a real plan. We need a constitutional plan. We need not to be dancing around this and saying, I support this, but I don't really. We need representatives in Congress who will vote and who will stand by the oath that they swore to. Folks, liberty is not something to be hidden away on dusty shelves. It's something to be held up in front of us every single day of our lives, to be taught to our children and our grandchildren. It is our duty. We have lots of issues. We have health care, we have water projects, we have this and that. And yes, we need to deal with those things at our state levels. We need to throw out lawless federal government. Stop tolerating tyranny and despotism. And remember the words of Alexander Hamilton in 1788 when he wrote Federalist Number 78, where he said that all legislation that violates the Constitution is void. Our liberty does not come from government. Our liberty comes from God. And the Constitution is the law that we placed on government. It's time to restore.
Mr. Brown.
Well, the way I see it is that liberty and freedom pins its wings on equality. And if you're not taxed equally, you will remain to have neither.
Mr. Newhouse.
So first of all, I'd like to thank you again for coming tonight and participating. This is an important part of your civic duty, so I appreciate you taking it very seriously. You know, our country is at the crossroads of many, many important issues. And depending on what decisions are made will determine whether our future is bright or not. For one, I'm a very optimistic person, and I feel that our country is great, but it needs to have the leadership and the decision makers in place to make the right decisions. I feel that I am that person that you can send to Washington, D.C. with great confidence. I will never apologize for the experience or the opportunities that I've had that have allowed me to be able to understand those issues that impact the central Washington area as well as the whole state of Washington. Those issues we share. They're your issues, they're my issues. You know, the position of representative, that wasn't named accidentally. A representative is someone that you send to DC to represent your voice, to speak for you, to bring your voice to the nation's capital and tell people there what it is that we need in the state of Washington. In order to do that successfully, and I pledge to, I need you to be an active constituent. I need to hear from you. I need to understand your feelings and your thoughts and your opinions so that I can best represent you. So I look forward to working with you, representing you in Washington, D.C. And again, thank you very much for being here tonight.
Well, as I opened, I said I'm for 100% of the Constitution, 100% of the time. And it means just that. Everything we do is economics. So what I want, we have a government, we have a system in place that's stealing our money, or stealing our livelihoods through both inflation and an income tax, which is in the Constitution, but it's theft. What I want to do is return people to the ability to pursue their happiness. I want this theft of their economy to stop. I want to get rid of the Federal Reserve. I get rid of the income tax. I'd support something like a fair tax, which is essentially what we have in our state, which is basically a sales tax. But one of the interesting things about ending the Federal Reserve is that our money will return to value, and all this, we can reduce taxes, maybe even eliminate them completely, because our money would have value. Our government would, again, have to go back to the Constitution and base our money off of gold and silver, like it is mandated to. So we actually have something backing our dollars, because right now, your dollar is worth about 2 cents. I'm just tired of my savings being stolen through a system like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Holquist.
I'm Senator Janaea Holmquist, and I'm running to be your Congresswoman. And as you've heard tonight, I've got the proven track record to back up my promises and my commitments. I am a proven voice for less regulation, lower taxes, and a limited government. And beyond that, I've shown that you can stand strong to our core principles and still get things accomplished, and we need more of that in Congress. I've never voted for a tax increase on Washington citizens. And even amongst insurmountable challenges, when I was in a super minority, I was still able to reach across the aisle and improve our business climate by passing historic workers' comp reform. Now, my proven track record has received acknowledgement from the National Federation of Independent Business, as they gave me their Guardian of Small Business Award. I received a 100% voting record with the Washington Retail Association. The Washington Farm Bureau made me their Legislator of the Year 2 years in a row, which is an unprecedented honor. And I was proud to receive the highest NRA rating possible. Now, I've been very humbled and honored to earn the endorsements from groups such as the Human Life PAC and the National Electrical Contractors Association, the Hunters Heritage Council, the Sheet Metal and Air Conditioning Contractors, the Washington Trucking Association, the Washington State Patrol Troopers Association, and so much more. But what I'm out for tonight is I want your support. I would be honored and humbled to receive your vote and your support. And together, I know that we're going to be able to protect the American dream for the next generations. And I also want to invite you all out to get to know me even better. And you're all invited June 26th to join me at the Goose Ridge Winery at 5:30. I would love to see you there. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Didier.
In the Didier campaign, we have a simple equation. More government, less freedom. Less government, more freedom. You see, the greatest threat to the American dream today is the size of this federal government. You know, I've been told, and I've heard it up here tonight, that everybody's got more experience than some of us up here. I have to ask you, where has that experience gotten you today? That is all we've had back in D.C. is experience and career politicians. The House of Representatives was intended to be served by we the people, the commoners, the farmers, the businessmen. It's up to you and I to step forward and run for office and to serve this great nation. Our federal government today, here it is, a list of the 1,200 agencies. Let me read a quote out of the second half of the Declaration of Independence. One of our biggest grievances we filed against the king. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent out his hither swarm of officers to harass our people and to suck out their substance. Ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly what is happening today in America. Now, I appreciate that, but I only got 2 minutes. Now, I'm a farmer. I grow food for the American people. When I go back to D.C., I'm going to be growing a new crop. I'm going to be sowing the seeds of freedom once again for America. Clint Didier for Congress.org. Look me up. Sign up for those guns. Show a civil support for our Second Amendment. God bless America by Americans blessing God.
Thank you, Mr. Tika.
Tonight, virtually every question that was asked related to my contract with Eastern Washington that I put together. Now everybody's up here telling you they're going to work hard for you. Where's the evidence? It's right here. I'm doing the work now. A little less talk, a lot more action. Now imagine, I'm an optimist as well. Imagine a future where health care insurance is affordable not because of government subsidies, but because the prices are simply within our economic reach. Imagine a future where our budget is balanced and our children are not burdened with mountains of debt. Imagine a future where our Constitution is strong. This is the same Constitution that serves as the model for democracies the world over. How are we going to achieve this vision of the future? With leadership. While other candidates campaign on past performance, once again, we have provided a clear roadmap to future results. The contract provides you citizens with an opportunity to invest your vote wisely. Those running on past performance or perhaps on angry bouts of vitriol. Neither side has a clear solution to solving the problems that we all so desperately want and need to have solved. The solution, the work, has been done here. If we can elect individuals with skill, with courage, and with a plan to solve these problems, then just maybe the next Congress, starting next January, can be the beginning of a government that represents the values of the American family and shares their faith in our great nation. As Lincoln, our first Republican president, said, I intend to act, quote, with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, to bind up the nation's wounds. I am George Seacott. As your next congressman, I'll work to restore accountability to Congress. I've shown you how to restore accountability right now, to restore the bonds of trust. Thank you. I look forward for your vote.
Thank you. So, candidates, thank you very much. It's been very difficult, I understand, to get through this in such a brief period of time. I hope that all the audience has gotten a flavor of where the candidates are on certain issues. I also want to thank your spouses or significant others if you have them. This is a very difficult challenge to run for office. Not everyone has the support to do it. You have to have the support at home, so I want to thank the spouses as well. I want to thank the Benton County Republican Party and all of the people who put this on tonight. You did a great job. And thank all of you for those who are here just to hear the candidates and find out where they are on these issues. So one more time, let's give the candidates a great hand. So I'm going to turn this back over to Chuck. He has this announcement.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Senator Hewitt. I just wanted to remind all of you folks that when you came in, you were given a ballot. I would appreciate it if you would fill those out and turn them back to the ushers when you leave. Thank you. Good night, and remember to vote.
Thank you.